Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, one of our language completeness and consistency series. And let's take a look at our topics for today.
All right. So our first topic is equal bracket, which is um, uh, does it parses in the prototype build. The question. We have a couple of questions, namely, uh, what it should.
Well,
Right.
that
And you
didn't
can't,
work.
one of the issues, and unfortunately, John's on PTO, so we may have some difficulty discussing that today. But one of the issues is what happens if you do it at the beginning of a cell.
Wait a minute,
Uh,
this is crazy. What happened here was I hit find and then I hit return. I see, because it selected that.
right. So this is a normal input cell, right? So you need to do shift enter evaluation. Right. So natural language is sort of, I guess, something Dave picked as a temporary placeholder, or maybe we had some process to pick this. I don't know. I don't think this is in any way an approved name. Um, and it doesn't currently do anything. Um,
But it's supposed to go and actually try and resolve this like interpreter does. I mean,
uh,
this function is equivalent to interpreter of expression. Is that correct? Oops.
no. Well, I mean, I guess that's something that could be decided, but I thought, we were all my understanding, and I think all of our understanding is that this is something that was supposed to be like something roughly equivalent to a Wolfram alpha
Oh,
bracket.
yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I'm wrong here. What would be the thing to put here? What is
Right.
the thing to put here that represents this being natural language?
Right. Well, then, so if you look at the agenda, right, there are uh, three possible choices for Wolfram Alpha, right? There's sort of Wolfram parse. There's uh, um,
Okay, that's what I was expecting. Yeah, go ahead.
okay. So I don't know what specifically semantic expression does. Um, Lou, do you happen to know?
No, the interpreter framework is entirely separate from anything I've worked on.
Right. I mean, we were proceeding under, if you look at the examples, and I have sort of,
Yeah.
three possible interpretations of this, right. And if you evaluate the first cell in the group, you can actually make these live. But right. So if we use Wolfram parse, or something thereof, you know, that's sort of pretty restricted, but I think that's sort of what we want for something where, it's non-interactive and you don't, right? So like entities, mathematical expressions, those sorts of things parse, more complicated things don't. Then we could do something that's like control equal, but you get some pretty weird results, like equal bracket of food gives you text cell of bar. And I don't think that's such a good result to get, from a
Okay.
non-interactive evaluation.
Okay. The Yeah, that doesn't seem promising. Okay. So to me, this was originally intended as a textual version of control equals. Whatever control equals would do is what I think this should do in a first approximation. That's my initial position.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So which of these would that be?
Well, that's the one that's control equal expression right there.
Okay. Okay, fine.
But my claim is that is, some of those things are too far removed.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. But I mean, it would happen with control equals as well. I mean, the
Yes,
foo case,
but control equals is interactive. This is not interactive.
that's a really weird result. I don't think it matters that it isn't interactive. I think that what matters more is that it's doing the same thing as control equals.
Okay.
I think. Now, I will say something about user experience of this. To me, it, if I start, and by the way, yeah, I mean, okay, so the fact that it just acts dumb as a stone here and like does auto-completion for function names inside this is crazy, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now the question is, what's the UX that should happen here? Because we kind of know, I mean, it's a sort of a generalized ligature type thing. To me, there should be some appearance change that indicates you're putting in something special here. Maybe the font should change or whatever. If you backspace into it, it should, blow that up, right? But it's the same thing as when we do a ligature type thing where we do this and that turns into, as soon as we type the double bracket, it turns into this. But if we backspace into it, it turns back into that. So I'm saying, so what I'm suggesting is that yes, it is non-interactive, but the input should start looking different. Am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? So when I type this,
So certainly control equal switches to a different font.
Yeah, right.
Weight
and so I'm suggesting that
font
this should
size.
do the same thing
Yeah.
as well. That this, as soon as you type this, you're in this state, and you're going to type into here. This should be coming out in a different font, I think, or whatever is readily achievable. Okay, or something different about it. And if I backspace across it, or I break it somehow, then it can, revert to its normal form.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? So I think that will help in making it not so surprising that this is doing something auto magic like control equals. Now, another thing that's coming that may affect this is the local parser, which finally, after a decade, is supposed to be arriving. Am I making sense?
To the degree that that affects control equal, it would also affect this. Yes.
Right. But the point is
yep.
that one of the features of the local parser is that it can fail. And that means that it is
Control equals can also
interactively.
fail.
I'm sorry?
Control equals can also fail. I don't see
No,
how.
I know, but the look, we can be capable of doing it, but only on the server. You see what I'm saying? And so interactively, it knows that there is a possibility that you should have to retry it and go to the server. Right? So it's a little bit unclear to me how this should work in equals bracket. And you're right, we need a language, a full form for this. All right, what is this? I mean, it's really an interpreter thing, isn't it? I mean,
I don't see why this is an interpreter thing, right? It's a Wolfram Alpha thing. I mean, which doesn't mean we have to use the name Wolfram Alpha, but
it's right? Interpreter in the sense that it takes a string and produces an expression.
Sure, but so does Wolfram Alpha, right? I mean, this is literally, I mean, it's an undocumented second argument, right? But this is literally, I mean, if you want this to be like the control equals experience, then this is Wolfram Alpha of input string, comma, control equal parse, control equal result. I forget what it is, but it's listed in the
expression.
Second
control equal expression.
Mm-hmm. Control equal expression.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you type in Wolfram Alpha of foo, comma, control equal expression, which doesn't complete because we never documented it. Right. This will give you.
Okay.
Right.
So that did a server transaction. It did that thing.
Yep. Well, it's one of two possible server transactions because control equals first asks for the M parse, and then as a fallback also looks if there's an M input or M output that it can use as the interpretation, which is right. It's looking that the result pod here for foo has bar, and right, if you do double equals of foo, you'll see the bar in the result, and that's where it's getting this bar from.
Okay. So the question is what the name of this thing should be. And
right.
This thing probably should have an option, and possibly there should be a dollar variable that allows you to set it globally. should it be? So this thing is being stored. If I say hold of equals bracket blah blah blah, I will see this thing.
Yep. Well, there's a separate question about the typesetting of the full form and whether it should, whether it should typeset using the operator or using full form. But certainly if you did hold and then / full form, you would see this thing.
Yeah.
What you would never see is the unevaluated parse.
Right.
So Wolfram alpha of 2 plus 2, control equal expression.
The reason natural language isn't a particularly good name is because this can include math and things like that.
Right. And I wasn't suggesting that as a good name. I was just saying that's what they've put in his prototype, and so that's what currently happens.
Okay.
My original instinct was, well, maybe it should just parse the Wolfram alpha, string control equals expression. But then John, who is unfortunately on PTO today, made the sort of the counter argument, right? Triple at used to be, 3-argument apply, but then we created map apply so that
I think we want some function here because I think I can imagine people just using it. I can imagine people mapping it over lists of things. I think it's useful. What really is this? I mean, it does some computations. Go ahead. I mean, we've called it freeform input. That's a common name that we've used.
I believe that is the menu item, right? Or right? This is inline freeform input, but is the menu item, right?
Down here in the tongue.
No, in the insert okay,
but it's also there in the tongue.
No, it's not. That's for a single equal cell. The cell that you get by typing an equal at the beginning of the cell.
I see.
Which is why this is the 4th equal.
Yes.
Okay. I do not think freeform should be hyphenated. I would like to urge it not be hyphenated. Maybe we can ask DQA what they think.
Okay,
I think
Carl,
it should not be hyphenated. That's going to affect this.
So by not hyphenated, you mean mushed together as opposed to a space.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've seen freeform. Maybe I have.
Yeah, I think you have.
Okay.
All words smoosh. It is the nature of language.
Yes.
You've heard me claim this many times before.
Yes. Okay, okay, so while all of the results, at least on the first page of DuckDuckGo, are a TV channel called Freeform. So that
well, I'm seeing it in lots of other places.
Okay.
I'm seeing it in tons of places where it's not the television channel. Yeah, I'm seeing tons and tons of examples of freeform as one word.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume it can be one word. Okay, so we should change those things. So okay, but that means that it makes it possible. So what really is it? It's freeform.
I mean, we could just do freeform.
I'm thinking about that.
I'm wondering.
See, it's kind of like what kind of part of speech is that? Is that a descriptor of what's in there? Or is it, free form evaluate? Is it free form interpret? What's an example? I mean, it's a two expression basically.
Right. Right. I was going to say we could, I mean, I think in some sense it's from freeform, right? Which
Yes.
it's the slightly odd palindromic nature.
Yeah. I mean, but what it is, and maybe we should support this as a thing. It's kind of weird that, okay, so this, right? I mean, that, if I'm not mistaken, that's what we would have. I mean, normally input form is a generator, unless used in two expression, it's a generator.
Yep.
FFF. Bit weird.
Yeah. What about freeform interpretation?
What doesn't interpretation have a different interpretation, so to speak?
Well, and yes,
Interpret.
interpretation on its own, but it's well, I suppose if we could call it freeform interpreter, right? But we have this problem with interpreter versus interpretation,
Well, no, but
which
I mean, this, it is not, interpretation is a noun which says, I am giving you an interpretation. What we want is to say, interpret this. But it's not interpreted as free form, it's interpret the free form.
so are you saying interpret freeform is the name?
I don't like it very much.
Okay. Brett, Nick, do you have any ideas? You've interacted with freeform stuff before.
Would it make sense to call this control equal?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's an amusing idea. I think that's a wag tailing the dog, so to speak.
I was going to say, so one question is this something that we feel needs to have a shorter name?
No, not really.
So, could it be, is it freeform input or
That doesn't seem like the right part of speech. Because input is this thing that interactively requests input.
right, parse freeform or then that's close to your interpret freeform?
Is it interpreted?
No, because that would be that it has been done, past tense, so to speak. I mean, it's a
Right.
command.
So why isn't this freeform interpreter? I mean, right, interpreter takes an input and gives you a, an expression. So
Because normally interpreter has an argument there that says how to make the interpretation happen. I mean, it would be normally something like interpreter of freeform. Actually, it's interpreter of
of
what you are
string,
going to. What you're
right?
going to.
It would be interpreter of fish, comma, whatever. And here we're saying we're replacing that second argument with the prefix freeform, is what was my argument.
Yes, I understand. I think it's not terrible. Let me think.
So here's a question, which is not directly related to the name. If you do equal bracket Paris, say, is there a way to go from that to, the control equal version of it? And or vice versa?
What is the control equal? I mean, I don't understand. What you mean?
Right. I mean, so like, for example, if you do equal bracket, okay, equal bracket fish,
Yeah.
Versus control equal fish, does like convert to standard form or input form go between these?
I see what you're saying. So in other words, if I've got in my code here, I've got this, and I say Command Shift N, what does it
Right.
do?
Right. And right now it'll just, well, right. There's only one thing it can do, which is convert it to, natural language of string fish. And right,
No,
control
but why
equal,
can't it make it into an actual control equals blob?
because a control equals blob doesn't have a parse. And right. I mean, convert to standard form, right? It parses the input and then typesets it in the new form, right? The full form of equal bracket fish is, natural language of the string fish.
Yeah. So whatever that could have
Right. And if you do convert to standard form on that control equals there, it will disappear because control equals only exists in notebooks, and when you send it to the kernel, it's replaced with its interpretation.
Okay, so if I do Command Shift N on this.
Yep. It's now the entity.
Yeah, okay. So we'd want the same behavior, wouldn't we?
Well, no, because control equal already ran out to Wolfram alpha and found right. There is an interpretation inside of the control equals, which is not inside of the equal bracket fish.
I see. So you're saying
because
we
don't
might have
forget,
some
equal bracket also works in a standalone kernel, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Right. The whole point was to be tweetable, right?
That was a long time ago.
I mean, as far as Brett's comments, I think there's nothing wrong with having some gesture to go back and forth between equal bracket and control equal.
Right. There could be,
it can't be convert to
a raft or something.
And this might be especially useful for the last point in the agenda that you haven't gotten to yet.
Okay.
And that is that, if you type equal bracket Paris, you might care which Paris you mean.
Sure.
Right. I mean, and that's, partially why I'm wondering is because, if you're saying, I'm interested in cities instead of people or something, then
you're on a slippery slope and you shouldn't be using this.
Right.
This is for dead obvious stuff. Okay. If I'm typing, 3 meters per second. Well, that was a bad situation there, but let's say I type 3 meters per second. I feel pretty confident that's going to parse.
Yep. That definitely should. If it doesn't, I will be extremely surprised and disappointed.
Well, how do I get?
You need to go to the section called control equal parse and evaluate the first cell in there, and then this will be live.
Where is that section?
Right there, and then the first cell in that section. Yes, and now if you go and evaluate that, it will do what you expect it to.
Okay.
Now, if you add a / hold in there, right, you will not have the interpretation because you'll just have the expression that's ready to go out to the server.
Give me a precedent. If we just called this freeform, give me a precedent. Is that the right way around, the wrong way around? Do we have any precedent for that? I mean, if we say regular expression
I feel like
or something,
well,
that's saying this is a regular expression.
I mean, the closest thing I can think of, in terms of being a little bit unusual in terms of part of speech is like placed.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is, that analogous. Um,
Okay, what would the documentation say? Free form of string represents a piece of input to be interpreted as in free form, to be interpreted as free form input.
It interprets it as freeform input, not represents something to be interpreted, right?
Right. Right. It evaluates right away. It's not sort of a thing.
Right.
And sorry, I know you said you don't want the hyphen, but I'm just looking at various things and I'm seeing hyphens everywhere. Well, I found
I'm
two.
seeing hyphens that I'm seeing lots of places that don't have hyphens. So,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
but I don't think we want free form like standard form. Probably. See what I'm saying? If we said free form hyphenated, then it
It'll
would
look
be
like a
like
form.
standard form. It would be a form like standard form. And it would, I think, be confusing because then people will do slash for free form and it won't work.
Could it? Could we
Could
have
it
a
work?
function freeform that would take an arbitrary expression and convert it to natural language?
We could have, maybe. I mean, it's kind of like spoken form. Okay, so the options are free form, a new kind of form, but that doesn't really help us in terms of what, then we have to have from free form. But we then could certainly have two expression
Right.
of string comma free form. I wonder whether that's really going to work. I mean, I guess we have free form, things like tech form and so on.
Right. Although all those things are actual forms.
I know, but this could be a form too, in principle.
It's
I mean,
almost like freeform form.
But
I mean, it would be useful for LLMs. It's what we need something which is a kind of linguistic representation of just stuff we have. I don't know how linguistic we need it to be. I mean, the LLMs understand our language.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to create a big diversion, but
okay,
I
look,
was just
we've got
pointing out that I had
interpret
seen the
freeform.
hyphen.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, freeform has the advantage that I can imagine people using it. I think provisionally we should try calling it freeform with a string there and says, takes string as freeform input and interprets it and attempts to interpret it. Will be the description. I mean, I can imagine people want to do freeform / at and then a list of strings. I don't think that's completely crazy. I'm a little concerned about this, but let's try it. And please let's make sure. What am I saying? Let's make sure that we have the, some appearance thing, some input ligature type thing to change the appearance as you're typing it. make sense, Lou?
I understand what you're saying. Yes, I'll convey that to
I mean,
John.
what I think that's a question we need to pass on to John.
Yeah, I know, but that's part of the user assistance story and so on.
Right. And so then there's this, so then, what should the typeset form be? Right. So that free form of string there, if you convert that to standard form, should that stay as free form of string, or should that convert to equal bracket of string?
I think it should convert to equal bracket.
Okay, what if you convert to input form? Should we still use equal bracket?
I think so.
Okay.
Only full form would stay as free form,
Okay.
I think. Okay, next topic. Oh my gosh, the binomial topic.
Yes. Great.
And we have
So-
no Professor Moriarty here.
Right,
Maybe I
so-
misremember that. Okay.
So right now we have two versions of binomial in the prototype build. So we have binomial, which is basically the version 1 through versus 6 guy, and symmetric binomial, which is mostly, which is basically the newer guy. Right. So the thing we're currently calling binomial in prototype preserves I guess you call it the Pascal identity for all n and m, but violates the symmetry rule for negative integers. And, that's the one that Knuth and some folk insist is right. Symmetric binomial sort of goes the other way. It preserves the symmetry rule for everything, but it violates the symmetry the Pascal identity at m equals n equals 0. And this is now that we've done more research, I can right, this goes back to Camille Jordan. This is not some rogue definition that we came up with. Other math software has been
look, I think this is what we should do. I do not think we should change. I think a lot of other people have based their definitions on us. I don't think we should change what binomial does, has been doing since version 7.
That's exactly where I was headed, that we should add an asymmetric binomial for the Knuths of the world. And
well, maybe we can give it a better name than asymmetric, but why don't we say what's good about it, not what's not good about it, so to speak.
Okay.
But that's what I think we should do.
All right, so better name than asymmetric binomial, but okay.
Why do we actually need this other function?
Because Knuth comes and complains, and Bill Gosper come and complain about
Many
this.
people there's a vocal, look, special functions are a
How
matter
many of the
convention.
complainers are under the age of 75?
That's
You're
very
gonna
ageist.
push a new function for this?
I think there's enough reason to think that that's a desirable. Look, special functions are matters of convention. And there is a convention that I think we should respect, that people have had doing it the way Don Knuth thinks it should be done. It's all convention, right? We don't need any of these things. We could just say it's hypergeometric, generalized hypergeometric,
Yes,
whatever.
it's all convention, but the one we're following is a better version of
Here,
what's the
Danny,
term?
we're not
Analytic
proposing to change the one
continuation.
we're following. We're proposing to leave the one that we're following right now and
Yes.
add a function to deal with the other convention.
All right.
Okay, that's what we're proposing to do.
Will it at least be restricted to integer inputs?
That's a good
think
question.
Easier
I mean,
to
we can-
justify that way.
what's the advantage of that?
It's then very clear that we've put it in to satisfy
No. Forget
octogenarians.
that's not fair.
Okay.
That's not fair. That's irrelevant and not fair.
It won't be fair when I hit that age bracket. Until then, it's fair.
Okay. I don't believe in that logic.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
the issue is it's a valid, reasonable definition that a bunch of people support. It happens that, I mean, I don't know what the full age distribution of everybody working on combinatorics is, but I believe there are lots of young people. In fact, I know some of them working on combinatorics. We don't, they have not been pushy enough to voice themselves, vociferously, so to speak, with us. But I don't think we should assume anything about the age distribution of binomial coefficient users. I think it's kind of an amusing concept, but I think it's not, not relevant.
I have a
not...
question related to this. I actually don't know the innards or what happens. What happens with multinomial in these edge cases?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, does it even support non-integers? I imagine it does.
It does, and I mean, it is following, at the present time, it's following binomial, and we sort of made the conscious decision of we're not going to worry about those edge cases, right? We're just so in that sense, keeping binomial the same sort of solves the problem of, well, what about all the other functions? They'll just keep doing what they're doing.
Okay, and gamma, I guess, has a singularity there anyway.
Yeah, right. I mean, I mean, there's no gamma to worry about, right? I mean, right. Yeah. The point is that we have a cancellation of gammas in these points, and
okay, yeah, I guess I was misleading myself thinking of what factorial would do. Okay, sure. So, all right.
I'm just reminded here. I'm sorry, I can't help this is such a tangled mess. I just remembered that the villain of some Sherlock Holmes stories is a certain Professor Moriarty.
Yeah, he had written a treatise
on the binomial
theorem.
Right.
Yeah, I did not know or remember that.
Oh, so. Yeah, no, I knew where that was from.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, with its own Wikipedia page.
Yes. Okay, summation series.
Please tell me we don't need a third one.
Moriarty. What's that?
I said, please tell me we don't need a third one.
Moriarty binomial.
Binomial.
Who has anything new to say about the binomial theorem at this late date? And here we are, another 50 years on, discussing the binomial theorem, in effect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the question is, what special properties does the Knuth binomial have? It would be an irony if we were to call it Knuth binomial, but I don't think that's historically correct.
Actually,
if you open the source,
which one?
The source ref page for binomial, then I've added some notes about some tentative notes about right. So it can be defined in terms of a limit. Right. These are the main things I know about it and how it differs from the symmetric one.
Can I ask the history for a second? Is it in fact validly called the Knuth binomial, or did it appear in ancient Indian works or something?
No, there's unfortunately I can't remember the direction this goes. Knuth himself wrote something, I believe in the 90s, where he gave a name, and I think it was something like Roman binomial. But the thing is, I don't know which of the two flavors that is. And
Well,
the
Uh,
name
yeah.
refers
No,
to
no,
a mathematician named
the
Roman.
Roman binomial postdates the art of computer programming.
But so
And
what? I mean, but which one is?
Well, look, yeah, the question is which one is that? Because Roman was a name.
Okay,
It's
so
a
in
name
It's
of
math
a person.
neither.
world, we have this, something completely different.
yeah. Yeah, it's
Are you sure it's different?
yes.
Not just different in that edge case.
Um, right. Well, just look at that at equation 2, right? It for on integers, it gives a fractional result, which is not something either binomial does.
Okay. Uh, 1 over, what is this n+1 thingy? Roman factorial. Okay.
It says the Roman coefficients are. Oh, sorry, I was reading.
Sorry, go ahead.
It says whenever the binomial coefficient is defined, the Roman coefficients agrees with it.
That's what I was sort of remembering.
Right. But look at that definition, right? It's all non-negative. Oh, I see. No,
I see
that's
what you're
not true.
saying. Yeah, when there's a negative, the binomial coefficient traditionally isn't defined, or historically going back far enough. Okay. So Roman is not the right name here.
No.
Okay, can we do the history here? I mean, and blah blah blah. Okay, I think a lot of people are basing what they're doing on what we've done. So I mean, I think okay, in Art of Computer Programming, when did Don first use the binomial defined in the way that he now says it should be defined? Anybody know? I can ask him.
No.
I mean,
There's a good chance it goes back to the 60s or 70s early.
well, I
Right.
mean,
I mean, I know it's the late 60s or early 70s. I don't know where specifically in the art of,
but
computer
who
programming
did this
first introduced it.
generalization
But it's in
first?
the original, but it is in the, in the quote unquote original volumes, in the pre-tech volumes.
Daniel Loeb wrote about it, and if he didn't originate it, he'll credit whoever did. I think this is early. Yeah, 92 is what I thought.
It's not that early. After we had binomial coefficients.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a person at MIT, okay. Well, what's all this stuff? This thing is named after Steve Roman, okay? So can somebody, I'm not going to go through this in real time.
We don't have the liberty of renaming the current one the Roman binomial or Loeb.
No, we're not going to.
Yeah, I know I'm saying it might be unfortunate, but
But it's all, I mean, just do it right.
Is this
it.
when this person is calling it Knuth coefficient? Is that the thing that Don is arguing that our binomial be?
No, I don't
not
think
at all
so.
clear.
Okay, so we got to clarify this. Okay, we've got more history to do here. If it is
Seems
the
that these
case,
guys were at school together, Loeb and Roman. If you look at the references,
okay,
not that important. But... Oh no, I'm sorry, 89. I thought I saw 69.
it says 79 there.
Hmm.
Except it says to appear in 92 here. So clearly this person continued to work on this
So
stuff.
So I'm sorry, Loeb was 89, Roman 79. All right.
Right. Right. But right, basically, both conventions have been, sort of, I think, independently developed at various points.
Okay, well, we got two choices. Okay. One is let's try and figure out the history as best we can. If this convention was really introduced seriously by Don Knuth, then I think there's an argument we should just call it Knuth binomial.
Mhm.
If it wasn't, but predates it by 100 years and it was widely used before Don picked it up. In addition, if we find out that if we look at Don's own work, that he was not consistent in what he used, then that's again a complication. Okay, how did he come to make this, to make this choice? Did he make it on his own, or did he make it based on some existing literature? Okay, and in terms of what is the identity that he is most concerned about preserving?
It's the
Pascal's.
middle one there, the Pascal identity.
Which one? This one here?
Yeah.
Well, the other possibility would be to call it Pascal binomial.
Yeah. I wonder if he's hiding an identity, Knuth, that he's hiding that he is actually Moriarty.
Hiding an identity. Yeah, very funny. So this identity here, I don't think this is totally ridiculous, Pascal binomial. I don't think that's ridiculous. If its main property is that it preserves the Pascal's triangle identity.
Yeah, the only issue I raise is that both of them seem to do that. I think maybe
No.
M and N at zero. Well, no, because there's no. I mean, look at what happens when M and N are zero. We have negatives in the couple of numerators.
No, look, it either is true for the symmetric binomial or it isn't. I'm thinking it's not true, this identity.
It
Well,
is true,
I'm sorry.
except M equals N equals 0, as I
Yes.
wrote in the agenda.
Wait
And
a
also,
sec.
if
Is
you
that
want
the
to look at the
Pascal
symmetric
identity?
binomial page I wrote,
With the symmetric binomial page.
and you already opened it. It's not committed to CVS, right? It's
I see.
What is the Pascal identity of these that I'm looking at?
it's the one that says you can do it as the right. The Pascal identity is the one that says, right, you can decompose it into a sum of two n minus one binomials.
Yes. So each element in the Pascal triangle is the sum of the elements.
Yeah, but
Element.
my point is the Pascal triangle does not have negatives.
Right, but that's his point. That it ought. I mean, it could be extended, right? It's just we don't draw it, but so.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, yes, Knuth is very insistent that the fact that it's violated at m equals n equals 0 is terrible.
And what is his rhetoric for why it's
I'm
terrible?
starting to see your point. So if we call this general form the Pascal identity, say, then
Yes.
this preserves the one he wants preserves it. So calling it the Pascal binomial is plausible.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's kind of nice because it reminds one of Pascal's triangle, and it doesn't, which is after all the point here somehow.
Yep. Right. It's extending to the 0 and negative rows of Pascal's triangle, which are kind of hard to draw, but
I mean, it's a little weird that Pascal himself never thought about this.
Mhm.
So let's do the history. Let's find out if this is a Don Knuth creation. If it is, let's name it after him. Okay? If it isn't, most likely let's say Pascal binomial. And let's plan on having this separate function that, has this identity. Seem reasonable?
So are we sure that we don't want to change binomial? I mean, is that
We are
absolute?
not going to change
No,
binomial.
we do
Well,
not.
because the
End of
last time,
story. We're not changing it.
fine.
It's off
Yeah,
the
bec-
table.
Yeah, because last time when you met, that was the decision we made. So that's why
I know it's
Yeah.
wrong.
Okay, good. I kind of agree with that. Okay, I'm just making sure. So what we need is the asymmetric or
Well, we're going to
Pascal
call
or
it something
Knuth.
other than asymmetric.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, either Knuth
We're
or
going to call it a
Pascal.
Knuth binomial or Pascal binomial, depending
Fine.
on the history.
And okay, so we should say it's relatively simple. So we should say aim to have it in 14.1.
We absolutely will have it in 14.1.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
But we really want a resolution of what's going to be called as soon as possible.
Yes.
And I'm going to, history is hard, guys, in case you haven't noticed that. Who's going to try and track this down? First place to look is in Don's own books, because he
Yeah.
does a very good job of history. So can we please, did somebody already look that up?
I've looked it up in the what is it? It's Graham, Knuth, and Peteshnik. I don't have a copy of The Art of Computer Programming.
Well, I certainly do.
It's in the library, I think.
It's in the library.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can get paid.
Tell
Yeah.
me what
least
volume it is. I
some-
certainly have a copy.
Yeah.
So I don't know what volume it is specifically,
Two
although
or
I'm
three,
Well, we can
right?
ask him,
Not one.
which was written somewhat later, but doesn't matter. Let's
Yeah, I'm
find out
thinking
what he says.
two.
Okay. I think that's semi-numerical algorithms. I don't know whether that's really the right place for that. But in any case, let's find out, please. Can we find this? And I will ask Don if we can't otherwise find it. Okay. All right. Can we continue, please? I think we have a reasonable resolution here. I think it's either Pascal binomial or Knuth binomial.
Okay.
Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing us name something after Knuth. I think he's invented a lot of the stuff in
Well,
this
that's a
area.
fair point. That's a fair point.
And I do think that, so long as it's not ahistorical, if he's the one who promoted this definition, perhaps even introduced it, I think that's a reasonable thing. Now, he might say Pascal introduced it, and he's partly right, except Pascal never considered this case of beyond drawable triangles. So it's kind of, it's moot. He might have introduced the identity, but without thinking about that case.
Yeah, I think analytic continuation may have come a little after him, just a little.
It came with people like Riemann, right?
Well,
Yes.
Maybe
Euler,
Gauss.
Euler too, I think, was doing similar.
Yeah, Euler defined the gamma function, so he must have had
Yeah.
some notion of that.
Yeah.
It's 100 years later, basically.
Okay,
Close to
yeah.
100 years later.
I was thinking 80, but yeah.
All right. Consistency and order functions.
okay.
Oh my gosh, this sounds very painful.
I don't think the first one is particularly painful. The second one is certainly more fact intensive.
I have another meeting I'm supposed to go to very soon. So let's. What is this?
Right.
Decide what largest and smallest should apply to.
Yeah.
I mean, like if we have elephant and mouse, should it apply to that? No.
Okay. So Stephen, let's not try to rush through this. We can do the first. We can do the first one pretty quickly.
All right, let's look at the
We can
first
just
one.
save this.
Okay.
Right. So sort of alphabetic order, insists that its argument be strings.
You know what? We can't do this fast. This is going to be
Okay.
complicated. And these things are both related, I think. So I think we should wrap
Yeah.
up for today.
Okay.
All right.
Let's get this binomial thing really resolved. Okay. Let's go look at the history, see if you can convince me about the history, and really start with Don's own rendering of the history. Okay. And
Okay.
anybody else if there are other places where this history has been studied. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right, good stuff. Thanks a lot, everybody. See you later.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.